I'll pay you $5,000 to pretend to be my wife for one evening. The entire restaurant went silent. Every fork stopped mid-bite. Every conversation died. The billionaire CEO sitting in that booth had just made the biggest mistake of his life. Because the black waitress he was trying to buy, she was about to destroy him with words so sharp they'd cut through his privilege like a hot knife through butter. "Let me get this straight," Zara said, setting down the coffee pot with deadly calm. "You saw a black woman in a uniform and assumed she was desperate enough to sell her dignity for a few $1,000s. Take your money and your assumptions and get out of my restaurant." Alexander Hayes had never been rejected in his entire privileged life. What he didn't know was that the waitress he just insulted used to be one of the most brilliant attorneys in Georgia, and 3 weeks later, when he came back begging for help, saying yes would expose a conspiracy that connected both their destroyed pasts. This is the story of how an insult became an alliance, how a fake marriage became real love, and how two broken people took down the powerful men who tried to bury them. If you want to see entitled people get what they deserve and underdogs win, smash that subscribe button. This story is about to get incredible. Tell me in the comments, where are you right now and what time is it where you are? Drop your city and the time. Let's see how far this reaches. 6:45 on a rainy Tuesday morning in Southwest Atlanta. Essence Soul Food Bistro was already filling up with the breakfast crowd. The smell of fresh coffee, butter melting on grits, and Mama Lorraine's famous biscuits floated through the air. This was the kind of place where everybody knew your name, where regulars had their favorite tables, where the food came with a side of love. Zara Johnson had been working there for 3 years. At 29 years old, she looked like any other waitress. Hair pulled back in a neat bun, red apron over black pants, moving through the restaurant with efficient grace. But anyone who really paid attention would notice something different about her. The way she held herself, like someone used to commanding a room. The way she spoke, with perfect diction that didn't match the uniform. The intelligence that flashed in her eyes when she thought no one was watching, because Zara Johnson had a secret. 3 years ago, she wasn't pouring coffee. She was one of the rising stars at Clark & Morrison, one of Atlanta's most prestigious law firms. She graduated top 5% from Howard University School of Law. She'd been building the biggest case of her career, a groundbreaking lawsuit that would have changed everything. She'd been engaged to Marcus Webb, a brilliant attorney from Harvard who everyone said was going places. And then Marcus stole everything, her work, her case, her reputation. He framed her for crimes she didn't commit, got her disbarred, and married the senior partner's daughter while Zara's entire world burned to the ground. While Marcus made partner and lived in a Buckhead mansion, Zara was working triple shifts to send money to Birmingham for her mother's diabetes medication. But that Tuesday morning, everything was about to change. The door chimed. A man walked in who looked like he'd been through a war. Expensive suit but wrinkled. Designer tie hanging loose. Dark circles under his eyes like he hadn't slept in days. He slid into a booth near the window without even looking up from his phone. Zara recognized him immediately. Alexander Hayes, 34 years old, CEO of Hayes Innovations, worth $4.2 billion. His face had been on the cover of Forbes, Tech Weekly, every business magazine in America. Son of Senator Patricia Hayes, who was running for governor of Georgia. She grabbed the coffee pot and walked over, her professional smile firmly in place. "Good morning. Can I get you some coffee?" "Black, strong as you can make it," he muttered, still staring at his phone. Zara poured his coffee with the same precision she'd once used preparing legal briefs. Controlled, efficient, giving nothing away. That's when Alexander finally looked up, and something flickered in his exhausted eyes. He noticed her posture, too straight, too confident for someone who'd been on her feet all night. He heard her voice, too articulate, too controlled. Something in his brain registered that she wasn't quite what she seemed. And then Alexander Hayes opened his mouth and said the words that would change both their lives forever. "I'll pay you $5,000 to pretend to be my wife for one evening." The words hung in the air like a bomb about to explode. The entire bistro went silent. Mama Lorraine stopped flipping pancakes. Deshaun, the 19-year-old line cook, froze with his knife halfway through an onion. The regulars at the counter turned to stare, Everyone was waiting to see what Zara would do. She set the coffee pot down slowly, carefully, because she needed a moment to control the fury rising in her chest. 3 years of being invisible. 3 years of being overlooked and underestimated. 3 years of biting her tongue. And now this man, this billionaire who had everything, thought he could buy her like she was a commodity. Let me make sure I understand you correctly, Mr. Hayes. Alexander Hayes. Oh, she knew exactly who he was, but she wanted him to say it, wanted him to own this moment. Mr. Hayes, you walked into a black-owned establishment. You saw a black woman serving you, and you decided she must be desperate enough to sell her dignity for a few $1,000s. Is that about right? His eyes went wide. The exhaustion cleared for a moment, replaced by something that looked like panic. I didn't mean it like... How did you mean it? Zara leaned forward slightly, letting him see the intelligence he'd completely missed. Because from where I'm standing, you didn't ask my name. You didn't consider that I might have a life, commitments, or self-respect. You saw the uniform and made an assumption about who I am and what I'm worth. So let me give you a counteroffer, Mr. Hayes. Take your $5,000, your savior complex, and your insulting proposition and get out of my restaurant. The bistro erupted. Customers started snapping their fingers in approval. Someone shouted, "Tell him." "Sister." Another voice called out, "That's right." Mama Lorraine was grinning from ear to ear behind the counter, shaking her head. Deshawn was trying not to laugh out loud. Alexander Hayes looked like he'd been slapped across the face. His mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. His face flushed red. For probably the first time in his entire privileged life, someone had called him out publicly and completely. I apologize. That was completely inappropriate." "Your apology is noted and rejected," Zara said, her voice ice cold. "We don't accept patronizing half measures here either. Now, will that be cash or card for the coffee?" He fumbled for his wallet, pulled out a $100 bill for a $3 coffee. "Keep the change. We don't need your charity, Mr. Hayes." Zara counted out $97 in exact change and placed it in his hand, making sure to avoid touching his skin. "We need your respect. $77 is your change." But their fingers brushed for just a second. And despite her anger, despite her righteous fury, Zara felt it. An electric shock that traveled up her arm and settled somewhere near her heart. From the sharp intake of breath she heard, Alexander felt it too. He took the change with shaking hands, stood up slowly, looked at her with an expression that was equal parts shame and something else, something that looked almost like wonder. "I apologize again. Truly, that was inexcusable." Then he walked out into the Atlanta rain, leaving his untouched coffee behind. The moment the door closed, Mama Lorraine was at Zara's side. 62 years old, warm brown skin, gray hair pulled back in a neat bun, wearing the same apron she'd worn for 20 years. She was a former social worker who'd opened Essence 15 years ago with one mission: give people second chances. She'd given Zara a job when no one else would. "Baby girl, you just read that man like the Sunday paper. He deserved every single word, Mama." "Maybe so, but did you see the way he looked at you right at the end there? I don't care how he looked at me. Men like that don't see women like us as real people. We're just problems to be solved with their money." Deshawn came out from the kitchen, still grinning. "Miss Zara, that was the coldest thing I've ever witnessed in my entire life. The way you counted out that change? Ice cold." Zara managed a small smile. Deshawn was a good kid. He'd gotten mixed up with the wrong crowd at 16, spent 2 years in juvenile detention. When he got out, nobody would hire him except Mama Lorraine. Zara had been helping him study for his GED every Saturday. He was family now. "Just standing up for our dignity, Deshawn. Don't ever let anyone make you feel small just because of where you work or where you come from." "Yes, ma'am. But real talk, I think that man is going to come back." "Well, if he does, he'll get the same answer." But that night, lying in her tiny studio apartment in Southwest Atlanta, listening to rain tap against the window, Zara couldn't stop thinking about Alexander Hayes. Not because she liked him, she didn't, but because something about the whole encounter felt off. So she did what any former attorney would do. She researched Hayes Innovations. Founded 7 years ago, specialized in artificial intelligence for healthcare, worth $4.2 billion, revolutionary diagnostic algorithms that could detect diseases earlier than traditional methods, featured in every major technology publication. Alexander Hayes himself had been on Forbes' 30 Under 40 list twice, but then Zara found something that made her blood run cold. Hayes Innovations was being sued, a major class action lawsuit claiming their AI produced discriminatory healthcare recommendations, algorithmic bias that resulted in worse care for minority patients, and the legal strategy being used against them. Zara recognized every single argument, every precedent cited, every structural approach to the case, because she had invented that strategy. 3 years ago, she'd been building a groundbreaking lawsuit using that exact methodology. It was brilliant, innovative, a whole new way of approaching discrimination cases in the age of AI, and Marcus Webb had stolen it. He'd taken her work, put his name on it, and used it to win the case that made him partner. Now someone was using her stolen strategy against Alexander Hayes. Zara sat back, her mind racing. This wasn't a coincidence. Marcus worked at Clark & Morrison. Theodore Carmichael, the venture capitalist who'd originally funded Hayes Innovations, sat on Clark & Morrison's advisory board. Alexander Hayes and Zara Johnson weren't just two people who'd had an awkward encounter at a soul food bistro. They were both targets, both being destroyed by the same network of powerful men who saw them as threats. Zara just didn't know yet how deep the conspiracy went, or that accepting Alexander's inevitable second offer would be the first step toward destroying everyone who'd tried to destroy them. Wednesday morning, 5:30 a.m. Zara arrived at Essence for the breakfast shift, determined to forget Alexander Hayes existed. She had real problems to deal with. Her mother's medication costs in Birmingham had just increased again. She was already working 70 hours a week between the bistro and her Saturday legal clinic. She didn't have time or energy for complicated feelings about complicated billionaires. She was setting up the coffee station, arranging cups and checking the cream dispensers, when she felt it again. That presence. The air pressure in the room seemed to change. She didn't need to turn around to know he was back. "Mr. Hayes, I thought I made myself very clear yesterday." "You did." His voice was different than yesterday, quieter, humbler. "I'm here to apologize properly, not with money, with honesty." Zara finally turned around. He looked worse than yesterday, if that was even possible. Same expensive suit, but even more wrinkled, like he'd slept in it. Hair messed up, eyes red and exhausted. But there was something different in his expression. The arrogant CEO mask had cracked, and she could see an actual human being underneath. "I'm listening." What Alexander Hayes did next genuinely shocked her. He told the truth. He told her about his father. James Hayes, a postal worker who'd worked the same route in South Atlanta for 20 years. How his mother, Patricia, had been a young lawyer when she met James. How her wealthy family had been horrified that she'd fallen in love with a black postal worker. How they'd built a life anyway, against all odds. He told her about being 15 years old when his father died of a heart attack on his mail route. How he'd found his mother crying in their small kitchen, holding James's uniform. How he'd promised himself he'd build something that would make his father proud. He told her about building Hayes Innovations from nothing, starting in his MIT dorm room, about proving he wasn't just Senator Patricia Hayes' son riding her coattails, about wanting to create technology that actually helped people instead of just making rich people richer. And then he told her about Vanessa Carmichael, the daughter of venture capitalist Theodore Carmichael, who'd given Hayes Innovations its first major funding. Beautiful, sophisticated, from old Atlanta money. They'd been engaged for 8 months. "I caught her in my office with my CFO," Alexander said, his voice going flat. "They were stealing my proprietary AI algorithms. Vanessa was passing everything to her father so he could build a competing company. When I confronted them, she didn't even deny it, just said business was business." He paused, swallowing hard. "The board vote is in 3 days. Theodore Carmichael has enough support to call a vote of no confidence. If I lose everything I built, everything I promised my father I'd create. And your mother's campaign gala is the same night." Zara said quietly, the pieces clicking together. She's hosting it at the Atlanta History Center. She'll be parading eligible women in front of me all night, trying to make me look stable and settled for her gubernatorial run. I'm drowning, and yesterday morning, I walked into your restaurant exhausted and desperate, and I made a terrible, terrible decision. He looked directly at her now, and Zara saw something in his eyes she hadn't expected. Genuine remorse. I was completely out of line. You were right about everything. I did see the uniform before I saw you. I did make assumptions based on where you worked and what you looked like. I treated you like a transaction instead of a human being. And I'm not asking for forgiveness because I don't deserve it. I'm just asking you to understand that I was wrong, and I'm sorry. Zara studied him carefully, using every skill she'd learned in depositions and cross-examinations. Looking for the lie, the manipulation, the angle he was working. But all she saw was a man who was genuinely scared and genuinely ashamed. Why me? She asked. Atlanta is full of women who would jump at the chance to pretend to be your wife for $5,000. Society women who know that world, who could play the part perfectly. He smiled for the first time, and it completely transformed his exhausted face, made him look younger, more real. Because you said no. Because you saw through my nonsense in about 30 seconds and called me on it. Because you're clearly brilliant and educated, and you won't let me get away with anything. He paused. And because you run a legal clinic here on Saturdays, helping people with evictions in small claims court, which means you have a law background, which means you're not just a waitress? Zara's heart stopped. How do you know about the clinic? I asked around, wanted to understand who you really were before I came back. She felt exposed, vulnerable. That part of my life is none of your business. You're right, it's not, but it tells me you understand contracts and negotiations. So let me make you a real offer. $10,000 for one evening. You control everything. The story, what you wear, what you say. I won't script you or tell you how to act. Half the money up front to prove I'm serious. And if at any point you feel disrespected or uncomfortable, you walk away. No consequences. You keep all the money. $10,000. Zara's mind immediately started calculating. That was 6 months of her mother's medication. That was breathing room she hadn't had in 3 years. That was maybe enough to finally save up the fees to apply for bar reinstatement, but it would also mean stepping back into that world. The world of power and privilege and people who'd destroyed her. The world where Marcus Webb lived in luxury while she struggled to survive. I need time to think about it. The gala is Friday night. I need an answer by tomorrow morning. He pulled out a business card, set it on the counter. My personal cell is on there. Whatever you decide, thank you for hearing me out. After he left, Mama Lorraine appeared with 2 cups of coffee and sat down next to Zara at the counter. That man came all the way back here just to apologize. Doesn't mean I should trust him, Mama. No, it doesn't. But it means he's capable of admitting when he's wrong. That's rarer than you think, especially with men like him. Mama Lorraine took a sip of her coffee. What's really holding you back, baby? Is it the money, or is it what the money represents? Both. $10,000 would change my life right now, but accepting it feels like admitting I need saving. Needing help isn't the same as needing saving. You've been carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders for 3 years, working yourself half to death. Maybe this is the universe giving you a break. Or maybe it's a trap. Maybe. But you won't know unless you walk through that door and see what's on the other side. Mama Lorraine squeezed Zara's hand. You're one of the strongest people I know, but strength doesn't mean doing everything alone. That night, Zara lay in bed staring at Alexander Hayes' business card. She thought about her mother in Birmingham, rationing insulin because it cost too much. She thought about the stack of medical bills on her counter. She thought about 3 years of being invisible, being nobody, working jobs that were beneath her education just to survive. And she thought about Marcus Webb living in his Buckhead mansion with his wife and his partnership and his stolen career. At 11 p.m., she picked up her phone and called the number on the card. He answered on the first ring. Zara? I'll do it. But I have conditions, and they're non-negotiable. She could hear the relief flood his voice. Name them. Anything. First, $5,000 wired to my account by tomorrow morning. I need to see that you're serious before I commit to anything. Done. Second, I meet your mother first. Alone. I need to assess the situation myself and make sure this isn't going to blow up in both our faces. I'll set it up for tomorrow afternoon. Third, I control everything about how I present myself. What I wear, what I say, how I act. You don't get to script me or tell me who to be. I'll play the part, but I do it my way. Absolutely. And fourth, after Friday night, we're done. No contact, no complications, no strings attached. We walk away clean. There was a pause, then. Agreed, all of it. Thank you, Zara. I mean that. Don't thank me yet, Mr. Hayes. You have no idea what you're getting into. Neither do you, he said quietly. And he was right. Because what neither of them knew was that Marcus Webb was already watching, already planning. And when he saw Zara Johnson walk into that gala on Alexander Hayes' arm, he would activate a conspiracy that had been 3 years in the making. A conspiracy designed to destroy both of them permanently. Let me ask you something. If someone humiliated you but came back with a genuine apology and an offer that could change your financial situation, would you take the risk, or would you protect yourself and walk away? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Wednesday afternoon at 2 p.m., Zara stood outside Senator Patricia Hayes' campaign headquarters in Buckhead, wearing her one good dress from her old life. It was a simple navy sheath she'd bought on sale 4 years ago for court appearances. She'd kept it because it still fit and because some part of her refused to completely let go of who she used to be. The campaign headquarters was exactly what she expected. American flags everywhere. Photos of Patricia Hayes with presidents, senators, civil rights leaders, celebrities, awards and endorsements covering every available wall space. The smell of coffee and ambition thick in the air. Senator Patricia Hayes was even more intimidating in person than on television. Late 50s, wearing a perfectly tailored navy suit that probably cost more than Zara made in 3 months. Silver hair cut in a sharp bob, Alexander's intelligent dark eyes, and an expression that said she'd eaten politicians for breakfast and was still hungry. Miss Johnson, please have a seat. No handshake, no warm welcome. This was an evaluation, not a friendly meeting. My son tells me you two met recently and decided to marry in a private ceremony. That's quite the whirlwind romance. Zara met her gaze directly. Didn't flinch. When you know, Senator. And I knew Alex was someone special the moment he walked into my life. Technically true, just not in the romantic way Patricia was interpreting it. You work at a restaurant in Southwest Atlanta. Essence Soul Food Bistro. Yes, ma'am. It's a Black-owned business that serves the community. Honest work that allows me to support my mother who lives in Birmingham. Is that a problem? Patricia's eyes narrowed slightly. Not at all. I just find it interesting that my son, who typically dates women from prominent Atlanta families, chose someone so different. The word different hung in the air between them, code that both women understood perfectly. Maybe that's exactly what he needs, Senator. Someone who sees him as a person, not a political asset or a bank account. Someone who'll tell him the truth even when it's uncomfortable. Silence. Patricia studied Zara like a scientist examining something under a microscope. My late husband, Alexander's father, was a postal worker. Did my son tell you that? No, ma'am, he didn't. James Hayes. We met when I was in law school at Emory. My family was old Atlanta money. Banking, real estate, the whole aristocratic package. They were absolutely horrified when I fell in love with a black postal worker. Her voice softened slightly. But James Hayes was the best man I ever knew. He kept me honest, kept me grounded, reminded me every single day why I wanted to go into public service in the first place. She paused, something that looked almost like pain crossing her face. He died of a heart attack on his mail route when Alex was 15. Collapsed right there on Peachtree Street carrying a bag of letters. Alex found me in our kitchen that night, holding James's postal service uniform and crying. My son looked at me and promised he'd build something that would make his father proud. I'm so sorry for your loss, Senator. My son built Hayes Innovations to honor his father's work ethic and integrity. But somewhere along the way, I think he forgot the most important lesson James taught him. That dignity isn't about what you have or what you've accomplished. It's about how you treat people, especially people who can't do anything for you. Patricia leaned forward and her voice dropped to ice-cold steel. So here's what I need to know, Miss Johnson. Are you using my son? Are you playing some kind of angle? Because if you are, I will destroy you so completely and thoroughly that you'll wish you'd never heard the name Hayes. Do we understand each other? The threat was delivered calmly, pleasantly, but it was absolutely deadly real. Zara didn't blink, didn't look away. Senator Hayes, I'm not using your son, but I'm also not going to sit here and pretend this situation is simple or traditional. The truth is, your son and I barely know each other. We're navigating something complicated. But I can promise you 3 things. I will never lie to him, I will never steal from him, and I will treat him with the dignity and respect that every human being deserves, regardless of how much money they have. Can you say the same about the debutantes and society women you've been parading in front of him? For what felt like an eternity, Patricia said nothing, just stared at Zara with those sharp, intelligent eyes. Then she laughed, a genuine, surprised laugh that seemed to catch even her off guard. I like you. You've got real spine. You're either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish. Probably a solid mix of both, Senator. My son needs someone who challenges him, someone who won't be intimidated by his money or his name, someone who'll keep him connected to reality. Patricia finally stood, extending her hand. Welcome to the family, Zara, for however long this arrangement lasts. As they shook hands, Patricia's assistant knocked urgently on the door and whispered something in her ear. Patricia's entire expression changed, concern mixed with political calculation. We have a complication. Theodore Carmichael just donated $250,000 to my campaign. He's requesting a private meeting at Friday's gala. Zara's stomach dropped. The same night as Alex's board vote. Exactly. He's trying to corner me politically while he's destroying my son's company. He wants me to stay neutral, maybe even pressure Alex to accept the takeover quietly. Patricia looked at Zara with new intensity. Can you handle being in a room with these people? This won't be some friendly party, Miss Johnson. It'll be a battlefield dressed up in evening gowns and tuxedos. Zara thought about Marcus Webb, about the false accusations, about being escorted out of Clark and Morrison, while her former colleagues whispered and stared, about 3 years of working herself to exhaustion while the people who destroyed her lived in luxury. Senator, I've survived worse battlefields than a charity gala. Your son hired me to play a role. I promise you, I'll play it so convincingly that they'll never see us coming. Patricia Hayes smiled like a shark who just spotted prey. You know what? I think my son shows better than he even realizes. Thursday morning, 3 garment bags arrived at Zara's tiny apartment with a note in bold handwriting. Choose whichever makes you feel powerful. Oh. Inside were 3 designer gowns. 1 red, 1 midnight blue, 1 emerald green. All of them were stunning. All of them probably cost more than she made in 6 months. Zara chose the emerald green. Simple silk that hugged her curves. Elegant without being flashy. It reminded her of the dress she'd worn when she won her first major case 5 years ago. Back when she was still Zara Johnson, attorney at law, with her whole future ahead of her. It felt like armor. Thursday evening at 7, Alexander picked her up in his Mercedes. When she opened the door to her apartment building, he actually froze on the sidewalk. Wow, Zara, you look... I don't even have words. Articulate as always, Mr. Hayes. Please call me Alex. And I'm serious. You're absolutely stunning. As they drove toward the Atlanta History Center where the gala would be held, they went over their story one more time. How they met, at essence, which was true. Why they married in secret. They wanted privacy away from media attention, which was partially true. How long they'd been together. A few months, which was a complete lie. But somewhere between the rehearsed answers and the practiced smiles, real conversation started happening. Can I ask you something? Alex said, navigating Atlanta traffic. And you can absolutely tell me it's none of my business. You can ask. I might not answer. Your legal clinic. How does a waitress know enough law to help people navigate evictions in small claims court? Zara stared out the window at Atlanta's skyline glittering in the evening light. Piedmont Park, the Fox Theater, the skyscrapers of downtown reaching toward the darkening sky. Everyone has a past, Alex. Not all of them are relevant to our current arrangement. What if I want them to be relevant? What if I want to know who you really are? Why? So you can feel better about yourself? Play the savior to the struggling waitress with a tragic backstory? No. His voice was quiet but intense. Because in the past 3 days, you've challenged me more than anyone has in years. Because my mother actually likes you. And my mother doesn't like anyone. And because when our hands touched over that coffee on Tuesday morning, I felt something I haven't felt since Vanessa destroyed my ability to trust anyone. Zara's heart was racing. This was supposed to be simple. A business transaction. One night of pretending, then back to their separate worlds. Alex, don't do this. Do what? Make this real. We had an arrangement. A clear, simple arrangement. Let's stick to it. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, okay, but Zara, after tomorrow night, if you ever want to tell me your story, I'll listen. No judgment, no assumptions, just listening. They pulled up to the Atlanta History Center. Photographers everywhere, lights blazing, women in gowns that cost more than cars, men in tuxedos that screamed old money. You ready? Alex asked. Zara took a deep breath, transformed herself. Shoulders back, head high, confident smile. Every inch the woman she used to be before Marcus Webb destroyed her. Let's do this. Alex came around and opened her door, offering his hand. She took it, and they walked into that ballroom like they owned the entire city of Atlanta. For the first 3 hours, everything went perfectly. Senator Patricia Hayes worked the room like the political professional she was, introducing them to donors, supporters, business leaders. Alex's board members seemed genuinely impressed by Zara. Technology journalists asked questions about Hayes' innovations that Zara fielded with surprising expertise, drawing on everything she'd researched. Alex kept looking at her with growing wonder. How do you know about algorithmic bias testing and AI ethics protocols? I read a lot. Technology law is fascinating. But she could see him putting pieces together. The way she spoke about legal precedent, her comfort in this world of power and money, the fact that she knew exactly which fork to use for which course without even thinking about it. Then at exactly 9:30 p.m., Zara saw him across the ballroom. Marcus Webb. He looked exactly the same. Same expensive suit, same confident smile, same possessive arm around a beautiful woman. Helena Morrison, the senior partner's daughter he'd married 1 month after destroying Zara's life. And he saw her. She watched recognition hit him like a physical blow, watched his face drain of all color, watched him whisper urgently to his wife, who turned to stare. Alex felt Zara tense beside him. What's wrong? That man over there. I know him. Who is he? Before she could answer, a voice cut through the elegant classical music and polite conversation. Alex! Everyone needs to hear the truth. Vanessa Carmichael was stumbling toward them through the crowd. Her designer gown was askew. Her makeup was smudged. Her eyes were wild and slightly unfocused. She was clearly drunk. Alex and this woman aren't really married, Vanessa announced loudly enough for half the ballroom to hear. She's a paid escort he hired to make himself look stable for the board vote. The music stopped. Conversations died. Every single person in that ballroom turned to stare. Theodore Carmichael appeared beside his daughter, his expression a perfect mask of concerned disappointment. Son, I think we need to have a serious conversation about your judgment. This is exactly why the board has concerns about your leadership capabilities. And then Marcus Webb stepped forward, and Zara knew, she absolutely knew, that this moment had been coordinated, planned. They were all working together. I can shed some light on this woman's character, Marcus announced, his voice carrying across the silent ballroom. Her name is Zara Johnson. 3 years ago, she was disbarred from practicing law in the state of Georgia for accepting bribes and falsifying legal documents. She's a convicted fraudster. The word convicted echoed through the room. It was a complete lie. Zara had never been convicted of anything, but Marcus said it with such smooth confidence that people would believe him. She felt Alex's hand find hers, not pulling away, not abandoning her, just holding on. "Is this true?" he asked quietly, just for her to hear. This was it, the moment of complete truth. The disbarment is true. Everything else is a lie. Marcus Webb is my ex-fiancé. He framed me to steal my work and my career. And now he's here to finish destroying me. She waited for Alex to drop her hand, to step away and protect himself. Instead, he squeezed her fingers gently and stepped forward to address the crowd. "My wife is one of the most brilliant legal minds I've ever encountered. Whatever Mr. Webb is claiming, I guarantee there's a whole lot more to the story. And unlike some people in this room," he looked directly at Theodore Carmichael, "Zara Johnson has never stolen anything from anyone." The room erupted in whispers, shocked murmurs. The sound of a scandal unfolding in real time. But before anyone could respond, Senator Patricia Hayes stepped into the center of the ballroom, and her voice cut through the chaos like a knife. "Interesting choice of words, Alex. Mr. Carmichael, perhaps you'd like to explain to everyone here about the algorithmic theft currently being litigated, the proprietary technology that was stolen from my son's company and is now being used by your new venture?" Theodore's confident expression faltered for just a second. "As for whether my son's marriage is real or not," Patricia continued, her voice strong and clear, "that's between him and his wife. But I've spent 30 years in politics reading people. I know genuine connection when I see it, and I see it right here." Then Vanessa Carmichael broke down completely. Tears streaming down her face, makeup running, she turned to her father. "I can't do this anymore, Daddy. I can't keep lying." She looked at Alex, her voice breaking. "He made me do all of it. The affair with your CFO, stealing your algorithms, everything. I never wanted to hurt you. I loved you. But he said if I didn't help him, he'd cut me off completely." Security was already moving toward Vanessa. The gala was descending into complete chaos. Reporters shouting questions, board members arguing, society women gasping and whispering behind their hands. Alex grabbed Zara's hand. "We need to leave. Right now." As they rushed toward a side exit, Zara looked back one more time. Marcus Webb was standing in the middle of the ballroom, staring directly at her, and he was smiling, because he knew something they didn't. The game wasn't over. It was just beginning. Marcus and Theodore have been planning this for 3 years, and they just played their opening move. But what they don't know is that Zara and Alex are about to play a game those powerful men never saw coming. If you want to see how a former attorney and a tech CEO take down a corrupt law firm and expose a massive conspiracy, hit that subscribe button right now. Part 2 is coming, and trust me, you do not want to miss what happens next. They drove in complete silence back to Alex's penthouse in Midtown Atlanta. Zara stared out the window, watching the city blur past, her mind already working through every possible legal angle, every potential outcome. None of them looked good. Inside Alex's penthouse, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Piedmont Park, modern furniture that screamed expensive minimalism, art on the walls that was probably worth more than most people's houses. He poured them both whiskey without asking. "Talk to me," he said, handing her a glass. "Everything. The whole truth." So Zara told him. She told him about Howard University School of Law, about graduating top 5% of her class, about getting recruited by Clark and Morrison, about being the youngest black woman they'd ever hired, about the groundbreaking class action lawsuit she'd been building, a new legal approach to discrimination cases involving artificial intelligence and algorithmic bias. "It was revolutionary," Zara said, taking a sip of whiskey that burned all the way down. "A completely new way of holding tech companies accountable for discriminatory AI. I worked on it for 18 months. Nights, weekends, every spare moment. What happened? Marcus Webb happened. We'd been together for 2 years. Everyone at the firm thought we were the perfect couple. Young, ambitious, brilliant. We were even talking about getting married. Her voice went flat. What I didn't know was that he was stealing my work, copying my files, taking credit for my research and partner meetings. She paused, the memory still sharp after 3 years. Then he framed me, forged documents with my signature, showing I'd accepted bribes from the defendant to drop the case, created email accounts that looked like mine, built a whole false trail of evidence. When the firm investigated, everything pointed to me. But you were innocent. Innocent doesn't matter when the evidence looks that convincing. The Georgia Bar Association suspended my license pending investigation. Clark and Morrison fired me immediately, escorted me out of the building like a criminal while my colleagues whispered and stared. What did Marcus do? Married Helena Morrison, the senior partner's daughter, exactly 1 month later. Used my stolen legal strategy to win the case. Made partner. Bought a mansion in Buckhead. Zara's hands were shaking. I spent every dollar I had on lawyers trying to clear my name. The charges were eventually dismissed for insufficient evidence, but my reputation was destroyed. No firm would touch me. I couldn't afford to keep fighting. So you disappeared. I survived. There's a difference. Zara met his eyes. For 3 years, I worked whatever jobs I could get that didn't require background checks. Sent every spare penny to Birmingham for my mother's medical bills, and tried to forget I'd ever been an attorney. Alex was quiet for a long moment, processing everything. The lawsuit against my company, that's your legal strategy, isn't it? Your stolen work being used as a weapon. Every single argument, every precedent citation, it's mine. And Marcus works at Clark and Morrison, where Theodore Carmichael sits on the advisory board. They're connected. They've been coordinating this whole thing. You and me, we're both threats to their power structure. So they're trying to eliminate us both. Alex's phone buzzed. A text from his mother. Call me immediately. He put her on speaker. Patricia's voice was tense, urgent. The board vote has been moved up to Monday morning. Theodore is pushing hard, and after tonight's spectacle, he has more support than before. You're losing, Alex. What about Vanessa's confession? Alex asked. She admitted her father forced her to steal my algorithms. She was drunk and emotional. Her lawyers will claim she was coerced or confused. We need actual evidence, not just testimony from a compromised witness. Mom, what do we do? You fight, both of you. Patricia's voice softened slightly. Zara, my sources tell me you were one of the most brilliant legal minds in Georgia before Marcus Webb destroyed you. Is that accurate? Yes, Senator. Then it's time to be that attorney again. You can't practice officially without your license, but you can consult, you can research, you can build a case, and I have resources, investigators, FBI contacts, political leverage. Zara's mind was already racing. We'd need hard evidence. Documentation of conspiracy between Marcus and Theodore. Proof that they've been working together to destroy both Alex's company and my career. I can access Hayes Innovations corporate records, Alex said. Show the timeline of the algorithmic theft. Prove Vanessa had access. And I can get subpoenas through my Senate committee, Patricia added. But we need more than just corporate espionage. We need to prove a pattern that Marcus and Theodore have done this before to other people. Zara stood up, pacing now, her attorney brain fully engaged for the first time in 3 years. Marcus keeps insurance files. Every corrupt lawyer does. Documentation of their own crimes as protection in case their colleagues try to sacrifice them. If we can access those files, we can prove everything. Where are they? Alex asked. His office at Clark and Morrison, hidden filing cabinet with a false bottom behind his desk. How do you know? Because I was engaged to him for 2 years. I know all his secrets, all his hiding places, every single dirty trick he uses. Can you get access? Not legally. I'd need to break into the office, which would make any evidence inadmissible and probably get me arrested. What if we had a legal reason to be there? Patricia said slowly. What if Alex arranged a consultation meeting with Clark and Morrison? Brought you along as his legal consultant? Marcus would recognize me immediately. Good. Let him see you. Let him think you're just the disgraced ex-fiancé playing dress-up. While he's focused on you, we plant a listening device. Get him talking about the conspiracy." Alex shook his head. "That's incredibly risky. If Marcus suspects anything—" "Then we spring the trap early," Patricia interrupted. "I've been building a corruption case against Theodore for months. Campaign finance violations? Insider trading? I can have the FBI ready to move on Monday morning. We just need Marcus to confirm the conspiracy on tape." "This could backfire spectacularly," Zara said. "We could all end up in prison. Or we could take down everyone who's been systematically destroying talented people to protect their own power," Patricia countered. "Your choice." Zara thought about 3 years of invisibility, 3 years of working herself to exhaustion, 3 years of watching Marcus Webb live in luxury while she struggled to pay for her mother's insulin. "I'm in." "Me too," Alex said immediately. They spent the next 2 hours planning every detail. Patricia would coordinate with FBI Special Agent Linda Rodriguez, who'd been investigating white-collar crime in Atlanta for years. Alex would set up a fake consultation meeting at Clark and Morrison for Monday morning, same day as the board vote. Zara would wear a wire, get Marcus talking about the conspiracy. "There's one more thing we need," Zara said. "Someone on the inside. Someone who can access Theodore's files, get us proof of the financial connection between him and Marcus." "Vanessa," Alex said quietly. "Can we trust her?" "No, but we can use her guilt." He pulled out his phone, called a number he probably thought he'd never use again. Vanessa answered on the third ring. Her voice was small, broken. "Alex, I need your help, and in exchange, I'll make sure the FBI knows you cooperated, that you tried to make things right." Silence, then. "What do you need?" "Access to your father's files, emails between him and Marcus Webb, financial records showing payments or coordination, anything that proves they've been working together. He'll destroy me if he finds out I helped you. He's going to prison if you help us. Your choice, Vanessa. Keep protecting a man who's been using you as a pawn your whole life, or do the right thing for once." A long pause. Zara could hear Vanessa breathing, could almost feel her wrestling with the decision. "Okay, I'll get you everything I can find. But Alex, I really am sorry. For all of it." "I know, now prove it." After the call ended, Alex looked at Zara. "We're really doing this. We're really doing this. Taking on one of Atlanta's most powerful law firms and a billionaire venture capitalist with nothing but a wire and a lot of nerve. When you put it that way, it sounds completely insane." "It is completely insane, but it's also the only shot we have." Zara stood, suddenly exhausted. "I should go. It's late, and we both need to be sharp on Monday." "Stay." The word came out before Alex seemed to think about it. "I mean, it's late. You can take the guest room. And tomorrow we should go over the plan again. Make sure we're not missing anything." Zara knew she should say no, should maintain distance and boundaries, should remember this was still a business arrangement, not whatever her heart was trying to make it. "Okay, I'll stay." That night, lying in Alex's guest room with its 1,000 thread count sheets and view of the Atlanta skyline, Zara couldn't sleep. In less than 3 days, she'd either get her life back or lose everything permanently. What she didn't know was that in a Buckhead mansion, Marcus Webb was making plans of his own. And in a high-rise office, Theodore Carmichael was activating resources that would make Monday morning a battlefield neither Zara nor Alex were fully prepared for. The conspiracy was deeper than they knew. The danger was closer than they thought. And the price of justice might be higher than either of them could afford to pay. Monday morning is coming. The board vote, the FBI trap, the moment when everything either falls into place or explodes in their faces. Marcus and Theodore have no idea what's about to hit them, but they're not going down without a fight. If you want to see how this all ends, if you want to know whether Zara gets her law license back and whether this fake marriage becomes something real, you need to subscribe right now. And here's what I want to know. Do you think Zara and Alex can actually pull this off? Can two people who barely know each other take down a conspiracy that's been years in the making? Or are they walking into a trap? Drop your predictions in the comments. Tell me what you think is going to happen when they walk into that law firm on Monday morning. Part 2 drops soon, and I promise you, the payoff is going to be worth the wait. This story is about to get intense. See you there.